ready?
Are you guys ready?
I gotta flip it over.
Press ready? You guys are good? We're good?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're good? Good morning. On behalf of Jewish Federation of Northern New Jersey, I want to welcome Congressman Josh Gottheimer, esteemed elected officials from Northern New Jersey, and other distinguished guests. Thank you to Congressman Gottheimer for his leadership in introducing the October 7th Remembrance Education Act. It is deeply meaningful that this bill is being filled now, on the eve of the second anniversary of the October 7th terrorist attacks. That day marked the darkest day in Jewish history since the Holocaust, and its echoes continue to reverberate here in the United States and throughout our community. This legislation is about more than remembrance. It is about education and action, equipping future generations to understand the deadly consequences of anti-Semitism, to recognize how it mutates and spreads, and to build resilience against it. Sadly, the need for the bill could not be clearer. Nationally, the ADL documented 9,354 anti-Semitic incidents in 2024, a 344% increase over 5 years. The FBI reported 1,938 anti-Jewish hate crimes, the highest number since the FBI began keeping these statistics back in 1991. Here in New Jersey, anti-Semitism is at historic levels, with 719 incidents in 2024, the highest per capita in the nation, and a 76% increase over 2022. And right here in Bergen County, where Jewish Federation is based, our community bears the brunt of this. Teaneck and Bergenfield alone account for 7% of all the statewide incidents. In my decades as a Jewish communal professional, I've never seen anti-Semitism this severe and this rampant. This is why Congressman Gottheimer's bills matters so profoundly. By ensuring that the lessons of October 7th are taught in classrooms across America, we are not only remembering those that were murdered, raped, burned alive, and kidnapped, we are building a safeguard against the hatred that fueled that day. Jewish Federation of Northern New Jersey is proud to stand with Congressman Gottheimer and all who are committed to ensuring that October 7th is never forgotten and never repeated. With that, it is my honor to invite everyone to join us together as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I would now like to introduce another friend of ours, Assemblyman Gary Scher.
Good morning, everyone. Number one, first and foremost, my thanks, I know all of our thanks to the Jewish Federation, to Jason, to your leadership, for bringing us all together. Once again, it's a pleasure and honor to stand before you, extolling the virtues of Congressman Gottheimer and all that he has been doing. The October 7 travesty, disaster, whatever word one is going to use to identify what occurred, needs to be in some way recognized and remembered. It is one thing to see the date on the wall. It's another thing to internalize and understand what it is that exactly happened. And it becomes incumbent upon us to do just that. For all of us, October 7, whether Jewish or not Jewish, Muslim, not Muslim, Christian, not Christian, the issue is one of humanity. The issue is one of protection. Congressman Gottheimer has drafted a bill which we are extraordinarily excited about, and I plan to introduce into the New Jersey State Legislature, which not only recognizes what occurred on October 7, 2 years ago, but rather comes up with a plan, a clear and evident plan to respond to it. Response is obviously education. Response is obviously moving forward, identifying a way to ensure that the travesty is not forgotten and is internalized by children throughout this state. Of all of our school districts, over 85% currently teach Holocaust studies as required by New Jersey state law. Not 100%, we've got somewhere to go. But more than simply a date and more than simply a curriculum, we need a way to give to our children, New Jersey's children, a better understanding of what occurred and its import to them. I'm pleased to stand with Congressman Gottheimer on this issue, as on so many other issues, Congressman. You seem to be at the forefront of issues of concern to minority communities throughout this state, Jewish and non-Jewish. And I will tell you, in my District 36, which includes the city of Passaic and parts of Bergen, many of them corresponding to your district, sir, and many not, this is an incredibly important issue. With that, it is a pleasure and an extraordinary honor for me to acknowledge and welcome Congressman Gottheimer.
Thanks, Gary. Before you run away to the corner there, I just want to reiterate how grateful we all are for your incredible leadership in the Assembly. I don't know what we would do without you, frankly, without your voice, without your wisdom, your courage, whether that's the IRA bill, which I know you're fighting so hard for, or Holocaust education. You're never afraid to stand up and speak out, and I know it's not always easy, especially in these days, but thank you for all you do and for your friendship to all of us. Thank you. And I really want to thank the Federation for being such a voice of reason, especially now in a time where it's not always easy to speak out, where we're fighting against unfortunate, extremely soaring levels of anti-Semitism, but also of disinformation and misinformation, and the Federation never blinks. Last night, I want to thank you for the incredible program that I know you were part of at the JCC, that we were all, many of us were at, with the Alexander family, but also doing everything we can to get the hostages home, to find peace, and to recognize the travesty of October 7th. It's hard to believe that it will be 2 years this week. It seems like a blink, but at the same time, it's been a grueling 2 years as we not only remember the 1,200 who were burned alive, decapitated, babies ripped from wombs, the most horrific images that I've ever seen, but also the 48 who are still held hostage today, including, we believe, more than 20 who are alive, the Americans, the scores of Americans who were killed, and the 2 Americans who remain hostage. Their remains still in Gaza. So as we talk about the deadliest attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust, I just want to reiterate, that's a sign of October 7th coming. I just want to reiterate that what's more painful in some ways than the actual attack of the 7th, the knowledge of the attack, is a denialism by so many people. We've witnessed as part of that, such a tidal wave of anti-Semitism that just seems to grow more persistent by the day. In Bergenfield yesterday, I'm sure many of you heard, there was a rabbi attacked on his lawn, beaten, his neighbors rescuing him, but this just gives a sign with what was pointing to a clear hate crime, but gives a sign that this is a daily occurrence in our country. And the anti-Semitism began just hours after the attack on October 7th. It's not like something that built up. It's something that started and it happened years later. It happened immediately after the attack. Instead of empathy from people and organizations from around the globe, there was a flood of criticism and blame that really hasn't stopped. In the year following the attacks of the 7th, anti-Semitism hate spiked 200%. Last year, we saw the highest numbers of anti-Semitic incidents since the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, began recording them more than 4 decades ago. And our state ranked 3rd highest for anti-Semitic incidents in the entire country. Not something that we're proud of, representing the state of New Jersey. Not something that, I go to the halls of Congress and say, hey, listen to this record. It's something that I'm deeply embarrassed and troubled about. That's why we must turn toward the promise of peace as it's said in Scripture, speak the truth to one another, render true and perfect peace in your gates. Now we must speak the truth about what happened nearly 2 years ago and combat the storm of hate rampaging through our communities. And as was pointed out, hate, as Gary said, hate against anyone is unacceptable in our state or in our country. whether you're talking about against those of the Islamic faith, the Jewish faith, the Christian faith, Coptic Christians, you name it, well, there should be zero room against anybody because of who they are, whether that's their race, religion, their sexual orientation, or their background. Zero room for any of this. But we see against the Jewish people, these numbers continue to rise. But here's the good news. In the last days, we've seen skies of peace in the distance. I'm very hopeful with the potential for a new hostage deal and peace in the region, with the terrorists laying down their arms and governing power and Israel pulling back to their borders. It seems like we still have a ways to go, but we must remain vigilant and stand together to see how those rays of hope fully shine through. So many in our community have not only carried the pain and anger of these past 2 years, but so many have felt alone. And I know that's one of the biggest things people talk to me about is how alone they have felt. Why aren't people looking out for me and saying and talking about what happened in the Middle East, what happened to all those innocent people? And you know, or all those whose causes I helped myself, they say, why didn't they reach out? Instead, it's calling them a dirty Zionist, the new word for a dirty Jew. And, you know, literally it seems like every day there's a new way for people to attack and come at you if you're Jewish in this country. During the Day of Rage in New York City, you know, someone shouted at a group of Jewish people, "I wish Hitler was still here. He would have wiped all of you out." Protesters in New York said, "Say it loud, say it clear, we don't want Zionists here." And then came the online disinformation campaigns on Facebook, on Twitter, on TikTok, which are severe, those campaigns. I'm sure you've looked. I mean, if you looked initially at all the statistics of where the anti-Semitic rhetoric is, most of the, a huge number on TikTok, one of the great concerns I have with TikTok, so much anti-American hate, so much anti-Semitic hate and rage. And of course, suppression of other information, like things like Tiananmen Square, right? Suppressing certain information and letting other hate flourish, I believe, to tear our country apart and get us to attack one another. Outside my office, I have pictures of in Washington, I have pictures of all the hostages on the wall right outside, and I've had that since the beginning. And I have two sides on the wall, and as people are freed, we move them from one side to the other. Or if we learn they're deceased, we note that. I can't tell you how many weeks we've had to actually replace the images of the hostages because they've been defaced by anti-Semites walking through the halls in Congress, literally in the halls of Congress, defacing the pictures of hostages. And of course, we know what's happened on college campuses where seeds of anti-Semitism had been planted and nourished decades ago, whether it was Columbia University, chased out of their dorms, Jewish students, or receiving death threats, or spat on, or stalked, or pinned against walls, people screaming, "We all are all Hamas," martyring a foreign terrorist organization which is an enemy of the United States and killed Americans. I'm not just talking about our allies, killed Americans, whether that's Hamas, Hezbollah, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, killed Americans. They're our enemies. On October 8th, the day after the largest attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust, without missing a beat, a faculty member at Rutgers declared October 7th, quote, "awesome." In a single year, the Department of Education, leading up to 2024, documented nearly 300 reports of anti-Semitic discrimination on Rutgers campus. The ADL, which grades anti-Semitism on our nation's college campuses, gave more than 20 universities a rank of D, including Columbia. Here in New Jersey, Princeton and Rutgers received a D. Unacceptable. Far too many in Jewish communities across the state tell me they don't feel safe anymore to walk to shul, to walk to temple, to go about their business, to wear a Jewish star, to let it be known that they are Jewish. They don't feel safe to be in public and let people know. That's not acceptable in our great state. Against anybody, that's unacceptable. And I say this not only as the only Jewish member of the delegation in New Jersey or the only Jewish member of the Intelligence Committee in Washington, but I say this as someone who was at Temple last week myself. And yet, even through this dark period, as tough as it is, you have to look forward and be hopeful. Like those peace talks that begin today in Egypt. We'll never stop looking hopefully to find an end to this conflict. Adon Alexander, I saw his family last night. Last week we in Tenafly named a street in his honor, Adon Alexander Way, so that parents can drive by and tell their kids not just about a hero from Jersey who went to Tenafly High School and swam on the swim team and went to the prom like every other Jersey kid, but somebody who endured 584 days of relentless torture and suffering between the age of 19 and 21 years old, came out and now has decided he wants to go back and finish his service. And he goes back in the next few weeks. But it's not just about Adon and him being a hero that I hope parents teach their kids about when they drive by Adon Alexander Way, but also they teach them talk about October 7th, a fact-based analysis and information about what happened on October 7th and since. Education must be part of our response. The actual facts, not some fiction spread on social media. We don't want our kids to learn about October 7th or about the Holocaust or about any atrocity in American or world history from TikTok. They have to learn about it in school from our educators. The best educators in the country are in Jersey. We want them to learn from our educators. To combat this surging tide of hate and anti-Semitism across our country, against everybody, we have to teach our children in school the facts. They must ensure that future Americans understand the truth about the aftermath of October 7th, what Hamas did, what Hezbollah did, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They're not freedom fighters, as some have said online. They're terrorists, and they're enemies of the United States of America. Only by equipping our students and educators with the knowledge of what happened can we hope to stop hate in all forms against all people. Just like with the Holocaust, as Gary said, we're almost teaching every student in New Jersey in a public school what the Holocaust was. We must never forget about October 7th either. They have to learn the facts. Because we're seeing already now as people who no longer were alive during the Shoah, fewer and fewer, during the Holocaust, fewer and fewer. Now you see all this disinformation, Holocaust denial. Well, it didn't actually happen, or the facts weren't true. You know how much disinformation there is already about October 7th? As I was reading yesterday, people saying, well, it was an inside job, claiming that Israel actually was the one who killed the Jews on October 7th. It's already out there. The only place that our children are going to learn the facts is in school, not on social media. And I hope from their parents as well. That's why I'm proud to announce the new bipartisan October 7th Remembrance Education Act. It's the bipartisan October 7th Remembrance Education Act, which will direct the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum to build a model curriculum for schools to teach the heinous and brutal attacks committed on October 7th, to teach our children what happened on the 7th and thereafter, the history of anti-Semitism and how it played a role in the October 7th attacks, and denial and distortion as a form of anti-Semitism in the wake of such attacks. With so much dis and misinformation out there and the driving rise of anti-Semitism, from all the pro-Hamas content on social media to biased anti-Israel reports, this bipartisan legislation will be critical to teaching our children the truth about the tragic events of October 7th. This is not a red or blue issue. It's about the safety of our families. It's about our country and the values we fight for. And I know there's a lot of support in our state with tireless advocates like Gary, like the Federation, like so many others who are ready to fight to get this done. And I want to make something very clear here. We can and must lead right here in New Jersey. This should not just be a federal issue that we deal with in Washington. This has to be a New Jersey issue that we deal with here at the state level and locally. That's why I'm calling on the state legislature to introduce and pass a New Jersey version of October 7th Remembrance Education Act so that this vital curriculum is taught in our amazing schools. I'm so grateful that Gary will be one of the people leading the way in making this happen. Because I also plan to send leadership on both sides in the state a letter on October 7th urging swift action. I also plan to write to the NJEA and encourage them to be helpful as well. We can't afford for our children to be ignorant. We can't afford for them to learn history on TikTok. We can't afford our students to not know what hate is. We must do and what causes hate to happen. They have to understand the roots of hatred in order to put them out. If we don't, we will keep having a repeat of history. We must do this now to protect our community, not only as the greatest country in the world, but as the greatest state in the nation. And this builds on the work we've been doing before and since the attack, whether it's the HEAL Act to promote the fact-based Holocaust education efforts in public schools nationwide that I've worked on for years, or all we do to get critical nonprofit security grant dollars to help our religious schools of all faiths and to help our synagogues, our churches, and our mosques protect themselves. We must continue to do everything we can to protect, just like the Bipartisan Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, to give schools the tools they need to confront anti-Semitism and to codify into law the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism, the IRA definition that Gary has worked tirelessly on, the most widely recognized definition of anti-Semitism in the world, that dozens of countries have adopted, that 38 states, I believe, have adopted, but not the state of New Jersey, with one of the largest Jewish per capita populations in the country. It makes no sense. Jersey should be on the forefront. So I'm hopeful next time we visit, we will celebrate great progress we've made on those fronts. But I'll tell you this, we're not going to sit around and wait. We will act. We will do everything we can. I know the Federation will do the same thing, to stand up to anti-Semitism, to face threats, especially against those who call for the annihilation of the state of Israel and the Jewish people. Our Jersey values means we won't allow communities to be torn apart. We stand together and protect one another and protect everybody, because that's what we believe. As President Lincoln said, let us strive on to finish the work we are in to bind up the nation's wounds. These are wounds that need to be bound. The hatred toward one another against people of different religions and race and backgrounds, sexual orientation. It will take every one of us coming together as a community to make that happen. And I think that's part of the call for October 7th, to help bind the nation's wounds, to use that as a moment to come together as a country, to stand up against hate and violence. We can do this. I know we can. We are the greatest country, and our best days will always be ahead of us. Thank you. God bless.